So a couple of days ago, Trump has won the US elections. Many people are unhappy with this result, and it seems like even the German government is affected by this. Now, before we have a look at how Trump plays into this, we have to have a look at the current state of the German government. This is Angela Merkel, and she has been the German chancellor from 2005 until 2021. She's a member of the CDU party, and the CDU has been part of the German parliament since after the war. Now, during the time that Angela Merkel was chancellor, with the exception of one legislation period, she has been ruling over Germany with her party, the CDU, in a coalition with the SPD. After her 16 years as a chancellor, and mostly CDU and SPD being in power, people were longing for change. In 2021, the CDU has lost so many votes that the SPD has become the biggest fraction in parliament. And the people were also interested in a greener and sustainable future, shown by a record high vote in the Green Party with 14.8% of the votes. Being the party with the most votes, the SPD didn't want to work together with the CDU again. So after some back and forth, the biggest fraction in the parliament, the SPD, has decided to form a coalition between the SPD, the Green Party and the FDP, forming the Traffic Light Coalition. So a coalition or three-party also means that there are three different interests that have to be catered to. While this alone makes finding compromises already difficult enough, it doesn't help that during the time there has been the COVID virus, the Ukraine war, high inflations, and a European-wide immigration crisis. Now, you could say that it doesn't matter who is in power, it is just a bad time to be ruling because whatever you do, it's just not good enough. And while this coalition has been crumbling throughout the years already, it seems like the election of Donald Trump was the final straw that broke the camel's back. By removing Christian Lindner from his role as finance minister, current chancellor Olaf Scholz has more symbolically than technically made the statement that the coalition will not continue like that. He also added that he will put forth the vote of confidence to parliament in December. Essentially, this means that he is pushing for premature re-elections. But how does this work? As for everything in Germany, there is a well-defined process on how premature re-elections have to happen. The chancellor can put forth the vote of confidence, and parliament has to vote whether they do have confidence in the current chancellor, in the current ruling or not. And should this vote fail, then the president has the option to dissolve the current parliament, which means that there have to be re-elections, and this is exactly what is going to happen right now. At least most probably. This means that elections for the next parliament that would usually have happened at the end of next year now will happen in February. Now you may be wondering, has this happened before? Has this vote of confidence been put forth in history at all? And yes, it has happened 5 times already. The first time it happened was 1972 with Willy Brandt. His coalition is losing support by his own people, and Willy Brandt uses the vote of confidence strategically to force re-elections. And his plan works out. The SPD wins the election, and Willy Brandt gets re-elected chancellor in December. 10 years later, in 1982, Helmut Schmidt also uses the vote of confidence to stabilize his support. This plan works for a short while, but soon after, he is getting replaced by parliament by a vote of non-confidence. A vote of non-confidence is essentially the same thing, but it is initiated by the parliament instead of the chancellor. Through this vote of non-confidence, Helmut Schmidt is getting replaced by Helmut Kohl, who then in turn also puts forth the vote of confidence because he got into the position of chancellor without elections. He loses his vote of confidence, but then on the re-elections, he wins the voters' trust and gets elected chancellor the default way. In 2001, the vote of confidence is being used for the first time together with a decision. Gerhard Schröder puts the vote of confidence forth together with a decision of putting German soldiers to Afghanistan as a response to the World Trade Center attacks that happened on 9/11. Essentially, he threatens the ruling coalition with either supporting him in his decision of putting German soldiers to Afghanistan or risking re-elections. His way of actions is described described as extortion, but in the end, he wins the vote of confidence. In 2005, Gerhard Schröder is losing support by the parliament again, and he's trying to use the vote of confidence to force re-elections and find support again. But for the first time, the vote of confidence does not result in a stronger chancellor. In fact, his party, the SPD, loses in the re-elections and the CDU gets strongest party, which leads to the 16 years of Angela Merkel's ruling that end up in a traffic light coalition that we have today. So the traffic light coalition is breaking up now. And the final reason seems to be that Christian Lindner was not accepting any suggestions made by Olaf Scholz on how to proceed with supporting the Ukrainian efforts in defending itself against the Russian invasion. The reason why Trump has to play a role in this is that Trump has stated before that he wants to end the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, but he hasn't specified how he wants to do this. So there are speculations that Trump may cease American support towards Ukraine. Now, Olaf Scholz didn't want to see this happen, and he wanted to find a solution together with the other heads of the coalition on how to proceed with this, but he couldn't find a solution together with Christian Lindner, so he removed him from his position. Now, looking at the history of the vote of confidence, it has been used oftentimes strategically in order to gamble on the re-elections, making the chancellor stronger than before. And looking at the current situation, it looks like Olaf Scholz is also aiming for this exact goal. The FDP, the yellow party that Christian Lindner belongs to, who has been removed by Olaf Scholz, is losing votes in current election projections. In fact, the projections show that the FDP might not even get into parliament should re-elections happen. For a party to get elected into parliament, it has to gain at least 5% of the votes. And the FDP is struggling with this number. Following the projections, the most probable coalition seems to be a coalition between CDU and SPD, which would take Germany back to the same coalition that has been there for the most time of Angela Merkel's rule. The other possible coalition that might happen is one between CDU and the Green Party. They too would gain majority in parliament should they form a coalition. And I also want to mention that these two coalitions are the most probable, but there are technically more coalitions that could happen, but they all involve the AfD, the party which is considered extreme right, and it seems to be very unlikely that any other established party wants to work together with them, at least unless they have to. So it would be a fair assumption to say that Olaf Scholz is now using the vote of confidence to kick out the FDP of parliament altogether and to strengthen his rule, maybe not as chancellor, but at least as a party. Only time can tell where this road leads to, and February will tell the tale. You can leave a comment about what you think will happen with Germany and Trump, and I'll see you next time.
Es ist besser, nicht zu regieren, als falsch zu regieren. Auf Wiedersehen.